It really was in the end. I think that was what was quite surprising. I feel like Forest needed a win to have any chance, so I thought they'd have a more go at it. But it seemed like they were just comfortable staying in the game and trying to see late on if they could nick something. But I think it was a really good battle in midfield. I think Caicedo really dominated again. He's been really impressive. Um, Enzo Fernandez, I think we're starting to see a real kind of leader in that team finally, which is great to see as well. Really, every decision, he's there. He's trying to make the most out of it for the team. But it's a monumental moment. I know we'll go on to celebrations, but it does mean a lot because it's like I think we have to look at objectively that they are a young group. They've been put together like individuals with no connections. It's all like muddled up. Just get results basically, and they've managed to get the Champions League, and they finished fourth as well. So they would have got it regardless of the fifth position. So I think in the end, it's a credit to the players, and I think that's worth celebrating. And also, I think it shows that now they're going to have to stick with Maresca because obviously there was questions on that, which I think was a bit harsh, but even more so now that he's going to stick around, which I think is important because the club really needs stability, and and then we'll just see what happens in the window. But it's an important moment, but I think they fully deserved it. I think the key players, I think Cucurella at the back as well was really convincing on the ball, with his tackling and everything. And with no Jackson as well, no recognised striker in the lineup, but were able to still create. So yeah, but in the end, it wasn't a convincing performance going forward. However, I think controlling, being the more, for some reason they felt like more of the experienced team. Perhaps it's the stature of the club. I don't know, but there was that aura of like more experience into this game, and I think that was enough to kind of. I think once Chelsea got the goal, it just felt like the game was done. I couldn't see Nottingham Forest score, and I think, and then that's what happened in the end.
Yeah, it felt incredibly comfortable. I think you made a good point. I think this Chelsea squad is the youngest ever squad to complete a Premier League season. So it is like, I know, because the football Twitter fan in you wants to be like, 1.8 billion or whatever, and you got top four, like, well done. Like, and it is it's a shitty comment to make because there is a lot of players there. There are a lot of players there that haven't got much Premier League experience. Like you said, that midfield, that defence alone has been so switched up and mashed up, and Chalobah was out and then he was in and then he was gone again, and then like none of it's been settled. I think Maresca has, you have to say, overall done a very good job. He's managed to get the job done, get them over the line. And his post-match comments were quite interesting because he said, well, very interesting. He said in English, I would tell them to fuck off. And in terms of like the people who, I believe he said F off, but still. In terms of the people who doubted him and who've been saying, should he get sacked? Do you think he's shown enough this year? Because I still think there's been several moments this year where we've been talking about him, and it has been like, he's doing amazing. Oh my God, this guy's out of his depth. He's doing amazing. Oh my God, he's out of his depth. Like, does he need to find some stability within himself as well? Because it has still felt very stop-start and chop change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you've alluded to, there have been some games that have been absolute diabolical performances. Having said that, there's been obviously changes within the team. Like we saw the drop off of Palmer, for example, which was really, I think, probably why we saw a lot of bad performances in the second half of the season, in particular with the drop off of Palmer. And I think again, sticking with that kind of team, he was able to do it, but again, he started to switch it up in the last 5 games, for example. So I still think he's still figuring out his kind of best 11 and what he needs. But I think again, the striker situation doesn't help either. Not having a kind of goal scorer. Like I think he's worked well with what he's had, and again, he's had a lot, and he's had to kind of adjust of like picking like this is my core kind of squad. The rest can go, and then trying to like build, and then like for example, bringing in like Tosin in the team. I think he's been immense at the back because it's surprising because he's one of those players when Chelsea signed him was like, I'm not too sure he's going to play much, but he's been quite crucial. So I think he's got the best out of quite a lot of players this season. I think we're starting to see kind of a plan, a system that he has. But I think overall there's been lots of games where he's shown like ruthlessness and obviously hard to beat. Kind of the Manchester United game as well. Chelsea was able to hang on. But yeah, I'm quite impressed with the whole kind of way he's dealt with it, being only one season manager really as well. So he's done exceptionally well. I'm quite excited with him in the future, to be honest, to kind of lead for next season, see what happens. But he's done the job. He's got Champions League football. That's what we wanted, and we got it. So I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be able to do it at the City ground against a team that were fully desperate to get that win as well, like they showed real character. I think Palmer's an interesting point because I think this game, again, he was fairly anonymous. We've seen him really drop off the second half of the season. It's going to be interesting to see because this will be now his third season with Chelsea going into the next season, right? Will be his third.
Yeah.
At that point, you can't only show flashes of brilliance. You need to be showing consistency and being that leader in the team. When you're clearly one of the most talented players in the team, you have to be doing it consistently. So I think next season is a big step up for him, and there's going to be a lot more pressure on his shoulders. But obviously, this Chelsea team just need much more experience. I think they need to. It'll be interesting to see if the owners actually decide to go that way, and if they do, kind of break what seems to be the business model of buy young and hope that you can sell for more or whatever. I don't know what their system is, but I think that's what their system is. But do you think they're going to go up and step up for like players like Osimhen and players that are like those experienced players that are going to come in, win now, and take them that step above to be challenging next year?
I hope so, because I think they'll still carry on this philosophy, because I think it's something that's been kind of working in terms of kind of building some sort of finances and that aspect. But I think if we want to see progress, we need to really see a top world class striker and a goalkeeper. That's the two positions for me that needs to be vastly. But for me, Robert Sanchez is not a Champions League goalkeeper. No. Is that I don't know how we've managed to get it with him in goal. So again, that's the two kind of positions where you're like, right, I think we've got to just not stick with that philosophy and be like, we need world class. We need someone to score the goals, and vice versa, have that kind of stability at the back that's going to give confidence to the defenders in front of him. Having able to to feel more confident going forward and defending. They're the two key positions where you're like you have to invest. Ironically, but we'll have to wait and see. But I still fear that there's going to be an element of buying young, because now we were talking offline about Ansu Fati. Like that, it makes no sense. A potentially Garnacho, for example, like. You're just like, no, we've been through this road. Remember Mudryk, remember this player. Like, come on. So, that's my only worry. That I think we're hearing potential stories like that, which go against what they actually need.
It's just so it feels like Todd Bowley is like a child in a toy shop. Who just like sees the show. Oh, I want that one. Oh, and I want that one. Oh, I want that one. Oh, I want that. Like every player that Arsenal showed desire towards it, and Chelsea are monitoring, and it just feels like every player they're like, no, we'll get him. Ansu Fati would be just brain dead. Look, he was a wonder kid. He looked like he was going to have a really exciting future. Unfortunately, it's not really worked out for him so far. He's struggling to find his way at the moment. I don't think that's someone that this team needs to take a risk on. Like. Yeah, you've still got so many players you need to get rid of. Like, even before you bring players in, there's players like Nkunku who can't wait to leave the bloody club. Like, there's a lot of players that need shifting in this thing as well. So I think it's going to be, God knows what they're going to do. But look, job done. Chelsea will be in the Champions League next year. It does allow them to bring in a much better caliber of player. And really, I think with the right business, they could be challenging for the title next year. Arguably, I don't see why not if they had the right people. But for Nottingham Forest, let's talk about them. It feels like a disappointment. I think it's okay to call it a disappointment, even though Nottingham Forest qualifying for Europe is incredible, right? And they got into the Conference League in the end. Yeah, at the beginning of the season, they would have bitten your hand off, etc., etc. But their form towards the end of the season just has not been good enough. And I think the City ground, it wasn't really an air of celebration yesterday, despite the European tour. It just feels like they've really missed a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I felt like when I was watching the game, I didn't even feel like the fans felt like there was going to be something special happening. I felt like it just was flat throughout. And again, it's a missed opportunity. And it's like you said, the Leicester game, for example, the drop points at home, that was massive.
Huge.
Because this game would have been a draw and they would have been fine for Champions League. So again, they've dropped off significantly. But I feel like perhaps it shows two things. One, that they celebrated being in Europe, which they're rightly too. But I think that just shows that perhaps that they were happy on that and that they didn't really mind what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of what's kind of run down from the top to the bottom kind of thing. I also think as well that it's probably again with the expectation. You know, when you're in new ground where you're winning and you're up the table, you have that become that having this expectation to be winning games and like for example in that game they were expected to win because they're home, they had a good record, but I think that new pressure probably got to them as well, like not being that kind of expectation of like we are favourites to beat Chelsea and get to Champions League. That's a massive statement in itself, and I think perhaps that weight of pressure got to them as well, and I think that's fair enough. I think it's a new ground for them, but again, it's something. It's a learning curve as well, and I think ultimately, no matter what, it's like the bottom line, as you said, the fact that a team that almost got relegated last year are now in Europe is absolutely insanity. So it's credit to them, and they should enjoy it still. And I think they're in the Conference League. I think they got qualified for. So again, they could easily be the favourite for that. So again, and a chance for a European trophy. So, and they'll attract better players in the summer. So it's all in the right direction. But like perhaps it's that new expectation that they might have, and they'll have it next season as well. So they've got to try and build on that resilience and try to overcome it. But a big kind of season to transfer window season ahead. But yeah, I think that the sad note would be that they didn't finish strong because they had enough points in them, enough games to go over and get over the line. So I think that's what will be the most disappointing thing. But ultimately, for the season they had, they deserved Europe and they got it. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Europa League would have been like perfect. It would have been like, right, just take Europa League. It's like, you get some big teams along the way. You get the kind of, the Conference League, but then you look at the Conference League, like you said, they're going to be amongst the favourites to win that, like just by courtesy of being a Premier League team and the quality they have. They could absolutely be meeting Fiorentina in the final, right? We could see it. But as I was watching the game yesterday, I thought a kind of maybe a mental, ridiculous thing, but then looking at the owner, I was like, is Nuno going to keep his job? Is he going to be in charge next year? They won 1 in their last 5. The owner's already like publicly chewed him out on the pitch. I do have to say, I really respect him for banning Gary Neville from the ground. I absolutely love that, by the way. Just, you know what? I will fight for freedom of speech, etc. But no, when it's Gary Neville, no, just don't let him in, honestly. I absolutely love that. But I did worry that Nuno might not keep his job. Do you think I'm being ridiculous, or do you think I just get the feeling that he's going to be like, you didn't bring us Champions League, we've ended badly, I'm sorry, but you're gone?
I think it would be super hard. I think there's something to it because for me, when the camera panned at him, I don't know if you saw it, and you just see him he's like slanted. He's like, I'm like, oh shit! Like, I would look yourself in the change room. Don't wait for him to leave. Like he's coming after you.
Yeah.
But I think again, it would be super harsh. But there could be. I mean, he's a very eccentric owner, to say the least. So I wouldn't put it past, but it would be extremely harsh. I think the fans have a real connection with the manager now. I think they've got to ride it out next season and see. But I don't think he'll let it go. He'll remember it going into next season. So I think it will somehow come back to him perhaps next season if things don't go quite well at the start of the season.
Yeah, we will see. Well, we know they're not shy in the transfer window, so it'll be really interesting to see what business they get done. They've brought in Edu, of course. This is his first summer with Nottingham Forest. It'll be interesting to see who they bring in from Brazil, because that tends to be the theme with Edu. But it'll be interesting to see what business they get done and how they can handle the 2 competitions next year, because obviously we see a bit of a drop-off usually when a team kind of has their first experience of European competitions, but I think they'll be able to bring in plenty of reserves to make sure they get over the line. And maybe as much as Chris Wood has been fantastic this season, but saying thank you and getting another striker, because I don't think you're going to get another season out of him like the one he's just had. So I think that's kind of a key place for them. Also, the fact that the clean sheets kind of dried up towards the end of the season. Obviously, Matt Sells and David Raya were tied for the Golden Glove with 13 clean sheets, but their defensive solidity just left them at the end of the season as well. So maybe that's something that needs to be addressed whilst they're at it. But congratulations, Nottingham Forest, into the Europa Conference League. Just incredible. 10 places better than where they finished last season. Like, unbelievable job from Nuno. And I don't know if they've announced manager of the season yet. I don't think they have, but it absolutely should be him. It will be Arne Slot because the Premier League has no imagination, but it should be Nuno who wins it. Just the job he's done has been absolutely incredible. The other teams that were involved in the European race, let's go for the most controversial one, I suppose. Let's moan about referees. Let's do it. We wouldn't be able to finish this Premier League season without one more moan about referees, right? There was bound to be one more. And Villa fans, we are on your side. Now, the cynic in me might say, remember all the way back to that decision against Sheffield United when you should have got relegated during COVID, but you didn't. But it's really depressing that the only defence we have for these decisions is, do you remember when there was another shit decision? So I don't think that's really fair. But this decision, Andrea, I was watching the Gold Rush show and they were switching between the games as and when kind of the drama was there. And when the ref blew, I initially didn't even see what it was. Like, I thought, oh, he's offside? Is he offside? No, he wasn't offside. Was he? I cannot believe the decision they've given here. And then even with the justification, now the Arsenal fan in me is going to come out here and I apologise. The justification is they couldn't change the decision because he blew the whistle, right? We got a winner disallowed against Liverpool at the Emirates and the referee blew his whistle, but then VAR intervened and cancelled the goal, right? But in this one, VAR couldn't intervene because he blew his whistle. It just proves, once again, for the millionth time this season, they're just making it up as they go along. Like, the ref was so far away to make that decision. It was mental how far he was away from the play. For him to call that and then VAR not get involved, it just seems like, and potentially cost Aston Villa, £100 and something million. I don't blame them if they want to sue like PGMOL. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's one of the worst decisions I've seen. We say this every time, to be fair,
like,
but this
for the
this is probably
time this season. Yeah.
This is really bad. But again, I just don't understand. Like, as a referee, you don't need to blow, like, because at the end of the day, you can always go let it happen. Be like, all right, for me, he had the ball in his hand. I think it's not a goal. Can you tell me what it is? And it's done. So I don't.
Yeah.
There's like no need to have that instinct of like I need to blow the whistle. You just let the play happen, especially that situation when like he was going to take the ball and score. It was a very simple, like it was going to happen so quick as well. So that's the other frustrating thing is that if he actually let it play, it was going to be like 2 seconds, and then he could have been like, actually, no, it's a foul, and then they would have checked it. But again, I think as a referee, sometimes the body language as well. The goalkeeper did not complain. He knew he messed up. He knew he messed up. He knew, and you could tell. But that's when it comes back to what you were saying. I thought he blew a foul for like something previous happened, but the reactions just didn't make sense for it to be a foul. But again, I don't know if it's the possibility that that VAR's new. And perhaps obviously refereeing the training they do, perhaps it's always on instinct of like they need to make a split decision. They need to now learn to not make those decisions and let it happen and then see. In certain instances, they need to give it because, like, for example, I think it was a Nottingham Forest striker that got injured because they didn't.
Well, yeah. So for offsides, they're not blowing. For offsides, they're not blowing. But for this, you're blowing. Like
exactly, and that's where there's another contradiction as well. But in those moments where it's clear, you have to. But when it's this one where it's like, I'm far away, I can't see clearly if he's actually got the ball or not, you have to let the play go. And again, it's split second. 2 seconds in, the goal happens. I think it's not a goal. It wouldn't look bad on him either way because he's actually done the right thing letting the play. He doesn't need to make a decision. I think that's what the referee should be able to be like, that can help me. I don't have to make the decision instantly. I can let it go to VAR and I can give my opinion, but I can let it go to VAR and they'll tell me, we've got the right decision. We've both done the right thing. I've done the right thing letting the play go, and the VAR has done the right thing to give the decision. So again, it's just frustrating that it's still an issue where in moments they let it play, but some moments it's chalked off instantly. And again, you've brought the Arsenal game. It's quite happened a few times this season as well, where the whistle does affect it. Even the corner, for example, if it's not a corner and it goes for a corner, it's a goal because it's a separate play. This is where it's like too much inconsistency, and it's a massive moment. And again, look, Villa are down to 10 men, but I guarantee they would have won because it's Man United.
I don't think they've come back in a game this season. United,
No.
like they have not done well when they've gone a goal down. I think Villa didn't play well, right? Villa did not play well. United were dominating the game, but that's such a crap defense of like, oh, well, you weren't playing well, so don't stop complaining. How many times have teams played crap and won? Like, it's part of football. Like, you can't hold that against them. They were down to 10 men. They nicked that goal that was just like, that's all we need, and just take it and go home. And they've had it taken off them. And then obviously 2 minutes later, Amad Diallo scores. Like, great, I think it was the header, right? It was a great goal, like, really well taken goal. And then there was the penalty towards the end. But that game, that huge turning point, and again, like, just a massive turning point in football trajectories of so many clubs. Because, like, again, from an Arsenal point of view, there was about 2 minutes when Alexander Isak was on the transfer list, and I was like, Newcastle are losing, Villa are winning, we can make a bid for Isak, and then it all goes out the window. Villa, who are riding very, very close to their PSR things with their wages, like, have just missed out on 100 and whatever million pounds through this decision. Like, you're talking about a Newcastle going into Europe, the ramifications that could have for their club, like positive ramifications, obviously. But you're talking about, like, obviously you're not going to get 100% of decisions right. But when they brought in VAR, they said that things were going to be cleared up and we weren't going to have these issues anymore. It was going to be, things were clear, transparent, everything was understandable. It would be made like, the accuracy is better. There wouldn't be any kind of not any, but a lot less controversies. It feels like every week we're talking about another controversy, more than we would have been pre-VAR. I'm almost certain of it. So it's just been a complete failure by PGMOL and Howard Webb this year. I think not only, like, of course, it's not only Arsenal, but every club this year can probably point to 4 or 5 decisions where they feel like they've been properly shafted. And not because the guys made the wrong decision, but because VAR has either overcorrected or not corrected the decision, and that VAR intervening has made it worse, not better. So I think football fans don't want to see, or weren't demanding 100% correct decisions. We were just demanding consistency, and it feels like it's less consistent than ever. And I just feel genuinely quite bad for Aston Villa fans and the players. Like, and I thought Emery handled it really well post-match. Like, he was clearly angry. He expressed that anger quite kind of politely, and he skipped on the right questions. Like, when she asked him a question, he was like, next question. Like, I'm just not getting involved. I thought he handled it really well, because I feel like Arteta definitely wouldn't have handled it with that much grace. So I think, yeah, he did a really good job there, but he shouldn't have to be in that position. So Aston Villa get the Europa League. Silver linings, I think Aston Villa can probably win the Europa League. They'll be amongst the favourites. Unai Emery's record in that competition. Obviously, their issue for them is PSR and where this leaves them this summer, what they have to do. But Emery could win his 10th Europa League or whatever it is at this rate, right?
Definitely. With him as manager, they're favourites. It's like in Serie A pod, where about when Conte is a manager in Serie A, he wins Serie A. It's the same thing. Guaranteed.
Except when he's at Arsenal. Except when he's at bloody Arsenal. But yeah, I think they could go very, very far in that competition. It'll be interesting to see, especially with the run they made in the Champions League this year, like an incredible run. You think up against lesser opposition, without being rude, than they had in the Champions League, you'd be thinking, yeah, okay, they've got a proper tilt at this. But I don't think that'll be much consolation for Villa fans this morning. Maybe as they get into next season, they'll think about it a little bit more. But we do also need to say it might be hasta luego to Emi Martinez. It seemed like he said a tearful farewell to Villa Park. But another goalkeeper who got sent off in his last appearance. What my favourite thing about this, well, 2 things. It was completely needless. You could have just let Højlund go one-on-one with Højlund. You'll win. You'll be fine. Højlund is not going to fucking score. And also, the fact that you could see on Martinez's face him weighing up the decision. He was like, do I go for it? Fuck it. And then he just absolutely piles into him. I think Martinez drops these bollocks too often to be considered as good a goalkeeper as people say he is, right?
I think though it's a double kind of side of like an eccentric goalkeeper. Like he can be the shithousery. Literally won Argentina the World Cup on penalty shootouts. You know,
Yeah.
but however, it's like you said, it does lead to these moments where you know it kind of cost Villa. But
Well,
that
it
also
did.
cost Villa. It did, but it obviously made it a lot harder. So again, and it's happened a few times, like you said. So it's a bit strange as well in his last game. It seems like his last game that he would, kind of feel that reckless to do that.
Yeah.
When you'd feel like he'd be a bit more safe because it's a big game. His last game, he'd want to leave on a good note. But yeah, it's real mess.
I can he's obviously a very good goalkeeper, but every time I see one of these things and one of these decisions, one of these mad moments he makes, I'm like, I can see why Wenger never trusted you. I can see why Wenger was just like, okay, like he's so not a Wenger player at all that I feel like it makes more sense to me every time I see him. But like objectively hilarious moment. I really love that he just completely rugby tackled him. But I still think if he'd have just stood up and gone one on one, Højlund would have just shat his pants and it would have like p-rolled towards him, I'm pretty sure. But for Manchester United, a big win. Nobody saw this coming. At least Ruben Amorim, I think, he'd announced before the game that he was going to apologise for the season, which I really thought it's good to have that speech and say, look, this season hasn't been good enough. But I thought, do I just get the apology in pre-game and be like, sorry for what you're about to see? But they did get a win. They were helped a little bit. It seems like Amorim, after the final, which we've not really talked about yet because I'm choosing not to talk about it, but after the final, he offered to step down and take no money. He was like, I will leave, just no money, just let me go. And they said no. Are they keeping him captive at this point, Andrea? Because it looks like he is fucking